So the post-romantic style really specifically refers to a few composers that were working in the very, very end of the 19th century, and the very beginning of the 20th century, before World War I breaks out. And that is Hugo Wolf, Gustav Mahler, and Richard Strauss. So when you are analyzing a piece by one of these composers, keep this stuff in mind. It's sort of the carrying out the continuation of what Wagner did for tonality and harmony in the Romantic era. So this is just an extension of that. And of course, Wagner took things to the outer limits of the tonal system, and then Mahler, Strauss, and Hugo Wolf took it even further. So let's take a look at sort of our first, there's a lot of instability and avoidance of the tonic and how to get around the tonic. And that's basically their main goal, is to avoid the tonic as much as possible. So our first example of this is tonal instability. Post-romantic composers were greatly influenced by the music of Richard Wagner, who was able to sustain high levels of tension for long periods of time by avoiding resolution of the dominant function. Okay, so this is our first figure, 14.1. And you can see this is an excerpt from the very beginning of Tristan and Isolde. And here he gives us a French sixth, an A minor, to a 5/7, and then there's no resolution at all, nothing. Right? And then he does it again. So he sets you up. For a French sixth, moves to a 5/7, nothing, empty space, no resolution to a one chord, right? And then he sets you up again and does it again. So he sets you up with an augmented submediant chord, augmented sixth chord, and then bam, 5/7, no resolution. He leaves you hanging, just like that. So here's our French sixth, and then it moves over, 5/7. So here's our 5/7. It should theoretically resolve, right? This tritone. Right here, right in the middle, between, yeah. It should resolve here, but it doesn't. You get nothing, and then he comes in with another into another French sixth, right? Right? Another French sixth. Step up, and you're going to get another total non-resolution. You get literally nothing. Oops, sorry. Another 5/7. Right? Should resolve. And you get nothing. You get space, empty space. And then again, you get, oops, sorry. So in this passage, Wagner uses chromatic harmony, non-harmonic tones, an absence of the tonic chord, and this all combines to create total tonal instability, right? This particular passage, it's the source, this French sixth to the 5/7 is called the Tristan chord, and it's one of the most analyzed passages in all Western music. It's the most contentious passage in all Western music. I mean, this is how the book is analyzing it for you guys right now. There are a bazillion arguments as to why it's something completely different. But for now, this is just analyze it as French 6 to a 5/7. So yeah, that's Wagner. Now, Hugo Wolf in 14.2 creates tonal instability at the outset of the song through thin, so he's got very thin texture, lots of chromaticism. You can see all of these C sharps hanging around, A sharps, right? And there are no strong moves towards the tonic. So anytime you are on a tonic chord, it's a very weak moment. The music arrives at a clear tonal center only in measure 9 through a circle progression in the previous measure, and even here the tonic is somewhat obscured by non-harmonic tones. So you can see in measure 9, if we move over here, we've got, here's our strong 1 chord right here, and it's moved through circle progression, 5 of 5, 5, 7, 1, but you can see we've got an appoggiatura, we've got an non-harmonic tones, a passing tone. So he's sprinkling it with all of these non-harmonic tones to sort of mask our arrival at tonic. So another way composers will avoid the tonic and mask it and mask that harmony, traditional harmony, is non-functional harmony. So these are basically chords that just don't belong in our key signature, right? So they just completely are outside of our key signature and what we would normally see. So this is how they create buzzword tonal instability. So in this case, the passage does not return to tonic for 16 measures. And you're going to see a lot of chords that just don't belong. So we start at E flat, and then this is all pretty normal right here. Got a minor 3 chord, 1, 6. And then we've got this stepwise progression down, 5, 4, 3 of 5, German 6, 1, 6, 4 to 5. So the omnibus progression is a specific non-functional harmonic progression based on the chromatic scale. The whole thing moves chromatically. So you can see 14.4, every note, sorry I popped these up here, you can see the bass line descends stepwise, and everything else stays, right? It maintains, except for the soprano, which is also moving up stepwise. Once it hits the G sharp, you can see that the alto starts moving up stepwise, right? Once the alto hits F, the tenor starts moving up stepwise, right? And then once that gets to B, the soprano takes over and again starts moving up chromatically, stepwise. So another way that composers use non-functional harmony is the omnibus progression, which is a chromatic scale. So all you're doing is moving up the scale system. So you start with this nice 5/7 chord, and then you're just going to slowly work up. Right? And then you start moving the middle one. Finally, you make it to so that's the omnibus progression. So you can see each element of the chord at any given time, the bass line is always moving down, right, chromatically. And the middle
voices, the upper and middle voices, are either staying stagnant or they're moving. So in this case, you're starting with the upper voice, the soprano, right? So you've got right, and then the middle voice starts moving. The bass starts moving. The upper two voices stay stagnant. And then finally the soprano takes over again. Meanwhile, the bass line is constant, descending down. So that's the omnibus progression.
Okay, so this progression you're going to see occasionally in the Romantic era, but a lot in post-Romantic music. And it takes advantage of all these major minor seventh chords and their tendency to resolve. Right? So it's resolving all these tritones chromatically and stepwise. So an example of this is in Boris Godunov. You can see all of this chromatic stepwise motion. B to A sharp, right? And this F moves to F sharp, to G sharp, and then we start it over again. D sharp, E sharp, right? So this is the omnibus progression. It's non-functional harmony because most of these are not going to sit in whatever key you're analyzing in, right? They're not going to sit easily. It's going to be like a major 6 or, a major submediant 6 or a major mediant 3, something that doesn't appear in a major key, or vice versa. So you're just going to label them, you're going to analyze them as chord names and label them as non-functional harmony. Our next tool that composers use to sort of destroy tonality is the blurred cadence. So a clear cadence, like a perfect authentic cadence, is too obvious for these composers. It's too simple, it's too clear. When you've got all this other chromaticism and then you've got a nice clear cadence, it sounds a little bit dopey. So they also blur the cadence. And they do that by not going directly, they don't go 5/7 directly to 1. They insert something else in there. So usually it's a 5/4 chord. So you can see in the Strauss Meadow Saffron. So he starts with a nice 1/6/4 chord, goes to 5/7, and then instead of resolving on 1/6/4, he stops and he adds in this 5/9/4, and then makes his way to the 1/6/4. So this is what a blurred resolution is.
So we start with a nice 1/6/4 chord, right? And then we move to a nice 5/7 chord, pretty clear. 5/7, right? And now we're going to take kind of a leap. We're going to go to 5/9/4, which is kind of a crazy excursion. Right? Out of nowhere. So we blur this cadence, and then we finally settle on, the 1/6/4.